spend more time thinking about a matter than reading it. And I think that did make some difference in my output. I think all lawyers, including myself, whenever you get a problem, you just start reading. And you don't, you read whatever you could and, try finding a solution to that problem. But you don't spend enough time thinking about that problem. And I think that, it's not easy. It sounds very easy. It's not easy. And I think some of it comes with experience. But your ability to sit down and think about solving a problem, even a legal problem, has tremendous benefit, and I've benefited tremendously with that's one advice which I read from a very senior jurist in India.
Welcome to a special episode of The Abstract, shooting here in Bangalore, India. Today on the podcast, I am joined by Rohit Kumar, former SVP and General Counsel at Ola. Rohit brings a unique lens to reinvention, curiosity, and creating solutions that center both empathy and scale. He's gone from managing cross-border legal issues at Fortune 100 companies to building software that helps people collaborate around the world with clarity and confidence. We're going to have a conversation today about shifting from more traditional law to tech, the courage to bet on yourself, and how seemingly small frustrations can become catalysts for bigger ideas. Rohit, welcome to this episode of The Abstract.
Thank you, Tyler. Look forward to having this discussion.
Okay, let's go back maybe to the beginning. Share a little bit about your journey starting in law. You spent time at a top tier firm, you did some high stakes global work. What was it that drew you to this path?
Look, I think a lot of it was not planned. I think I decided to be a lawyer almost 28, 29 years back. And law was not considered as a profession to pursue back then in India. Typically, people would have a medical or engineering profession to look forward to. But I met somebody who was quite upbeat about law as a profession, and particularly corporate law as a profession, and that drew me to law. And I ended up being where I, completing my law, having a fabulous journey, starting with, a little bit of litigation work, but then transitioning to a full service corporate law firm practice, doing M&A with a top tier Indian law firm, and then, moving international, working with a top tier international law firm, and then to in-house, which we'll discuss in a while. So I think that's the journey I've had.
Tell me a little bit about the time working internationally, working with an international firm. I think that's interesting and somewhat unique.
It's very unique, at least for, I had a fantastic run.
Yeah.
And it was not just the work we did, but the overall experience of working in an international firm. For somebody like me, I mean, there are very few Indian lawyers who have not had an international degree and ended up working with or got an opportunity to work with an international firm. So I was very fortunate, very lucky. You end up doing some fascinating work, cross-jurisdictional, and working with some great lawyers and great teams, which I think, and the scale of and I think when I went there, the Indian law firms were much smaller. The biggest firm probably would have 200, 250 lawyers. And the firm I worked with, I was in the Melbourne office of Howard Smith Freehills. And just in that office, we had 800 people.
Oh, wow.
So just the scale was very, very different.
Yeah. I think that, your path at that point, is not so dissimilar from what I've talked to a lot of folks in the US about, which is we have this term big law, right? Like you're at a corporate law firm, the hours are very long, and at some point you decide that you want to go in-house, and people have different motivations for that. Was there a specific moment, or what drew you to the realization that maybe moving in-house was the right next step for you?
I think it was a couple of them. I've always been a big a fan of Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. And,
Yeah.
I remember around 2008, 2009, I was reading this book called Damn Right,
Okay.
which is a biography on Munger.
Uh-huh.
And as you might know, Munger was also a lawyer
Mm-hmm.
initially. He started with a law firm, and that law firm still exists with his name in West Coast. So I think one of the things he often talked about is his ability to control his time and living your life, billing your time to a client, and that's struck me as well. That look, I don't want to be leading my life where I'm billing every 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And so that was one. I think the other pivot was I think when I was with HSF, I remember working with a very, very senior partner, and it was the time between Christmas and New Year, and he had plans to go for a ski vacation with his family, and he had to cancel that trip. And he was a bit upset because the client wanted us to close a deal between Christmas and New Year, and he was pretty upset. And he was sharing that with me, and I realized that look, he is probably the most successful lawyer I know, a corporate lawyer I know, and if he can't control time at this phase of his career, I think it's you'll probably never be. And I think that was those two kind of coincided, and I ended up taking a decision of moving in house.
What was this sort of adjustment to the in-house culture like? Because I think, sort of culturally, in-house legal work is a little bit different, not just because maybe you're on your own schedule, but you need to enable the business to take risks in ways that you may not be as comfortable with when you're outside counsel. We'll talk in a second about, you need to leverage technology in ways that law firms may not feel the pressure to do. What was that shift like for you?
So I think, look, I've always been good with dealing with people. And I think the biggest difference, I felt there were two main differences. I think when you work in a law firm, you are the revenue generating, team
Right.
or a person. So the firm revolves around you, whereas when you join in-house, you are a support function. You may be an important support function, but you are still a support function. The business makes money, and you are kind of protecting the business and in all ethical and compliant manner, so that the business continues to grow. So I think that was one change I could feel. And I think the other one is very little is experienced or learned about stakeholder management when you work in a law firm. Whereas when you join a company, then you realize that, look, there are different power centers or different stakeholders who are important to be convinced about issues, and it's important to have your channel of communication open with all of them, and come talk to them often to come up with a solution to whatever problems you're facing. And I think that's one big mind shift I had between doing private practice versus moving to in-house.
And I think management as well, right? There are some, I think, law firm partners who are great at managing associates and great at helping build a culture for a firm. There are also a lot of places where you can be a partner, and because of the ability to generate revenue, which you're referencing, you can be a terrible manager and you can be a star performer and sort of one of the top lawyers. You start to, grow in your career in-house. You have to pick up a lot of management skills as well, and understand that bringing people along with you or empowering them to accomplish things may be far more important than what you do. How did you adapt to that?
So look, as I said, I have always been good with people, thankfully. And I think my view is that sometimes it's easy to get these things done if it comes naturally to you. So I was not a very detailed a person who would want to control everything coming out of the team.
Yeah.
So, believed in empowering the right team, hiring the right people. So I think methodically over a period of time, we built up that, system where we ended up hiring some very, very top class people, empowering them, making sure that they get the right training, and then, enable them to take decisions for the company, and of course within the confines of whatever could be done. So I think that helped me a lot.
You spent a lot of time in house at a large agricultural solutions conglomerate company, UPL, huge business. Remind me the numbers. Like when you joined, $1.5 billion in revenue and north of $5 billion when you left, or something like that. Is that correct?
It was just under $1 billion when I joined in
Yeah.
2010, versus just over 5 when I left.
Yeah. Not all my guests bring up technology or say they want to talk about technology, but you did. You mentioned that you felt like you were an early adopter of tech in legal. Can you share more about what drew you to leverage technology and what made you excited about doing it?
Sure. So, Tala, I've spent, as I said, quite a few years, or initial part of my year working with law firms, and I saw how technology brought efficiency and productivity in law firms in that setting, in both in India and when I went international, working for international law firm. So I could understand that technology is the enabler, can bring efficiency, can bring accountability. When I came in-house, I think I should also emphasize that I've always been somebody who has had mid to long-term views on things.
Sure.
Not just short-term, not just tomorrow, day after, next month. And I think that adds to the fact that, you believe that a small competitive advantage which you get over a period of time can make you a differentiator as far as efficiency is concerned. So I think that is what helped me adopt technology early. I remember in 2011, 2012, when we were looking at compliance at the company I worked for then, UPL. It was just, if not impossible, extremely difficult to map all the compliances for different tasks in India. There's just thousands of them, and this is pre Gen AI era.
Yeah.
But we did have solutions where you could go and adopt, or take a technology and implement and ensure that you become largely, if not 100%, close to 100% compliant, and which you could only do with the help of technology and not otherwise.
Sure.
So I think that's the reason I say I think one of the very early adopters of technology as far as India is concerned for in-house. And I think the other was I've also been lucky. I think I was lucky. I worked with a management team which was open to investing in technology. I didn't have a lot of budget issues. As long as I was reasonable, I could communicate clearly the advantages introducing that technology would bring. I was, the company was okay for me to experiment and see if it works, and more often than not, it worked.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned when you were at UPL was you were very hands-on in implementing a CLM. I'd love to hear more about how you think legal tech helps prepare teams to scale, or helps them prepare for the sort of growth that you experienced while you were at UPL.
Sure. Okay, that's a good question. So Tyler, I think without technology or without a platform like a CLM, it's very, very difficult to have one team, or people end up working in silos. I had that situation where I would not have visibility on what the teams in, for example, North America is doing, what the team in South America is doing, and how the contracts are getting not, I think negotiation is one part, but how the contracts, the transactions are getting approved by the right stakeholder, and not necessarily the legal team. I think legal team comes second. The first is that a particular transaction is approved. The commercial risk which is being taken is approved. And there was, there's just no other way to do it. And one of the reason for implementing the CLM was that we would be able to bring uniformity within the group in how the contracts are getting executed, how the contracts are getting approved, and how we create the right risk matrix with respect to who gets to approve what. And I'm not talking about the legal,
Sure.
but the commercial part of various risk you take in a transaction. Who gets to approve what, and do it in a maker checker concept where the person who's approving is not the person who's requesting. So I think that
Right.
that could only be brought in with a platform like a CLM.
I think, legal tech has also been very important as the world has shifted to a more remote environment. And obviously in 2020, and when COVID hit India as well as the rest of the world, that sort of shift to remote was not optional, right? We may see changes now, but at that point in time, everybody had to go home. How do you feel like tech and legal tech helped you manage your team, keep your culture strong during that sort of time of a lot of uncertainty and change?
Sure. I think, Tyler, unlike in the West and particularly in the US, where work from home was kind of, at least people understood what it was.
Sure.
I think other than the Bangalore, tech world, work from home was not understood in India at all. I worked for a traditional manufacturing company in Mumbai, and Mumbai, I wouldn't know anybody who worked only from home other than some people in the tech roles. So I think for us, it was, we were lucky. We had implemented CLM not globally, but almost we covered 70 or 60 to 70% of our geography with CLM just before the COVID hit.
Right.
And I was pushing the team hard for adoption, and it's not easy. And it's as you would know, CLM is not just about managing the legal team or convincing the legal team to use it. I would have instances where a senior business person is not ready to approve something on the system because whatever he's never approved it on the system, and probably for not having accountability, he would be happy not to do it through the system. So I think we were lucky. We implemented it in 19. But what happened with early 2020 when pandemic hit, we were kind of juggling on how to start working seamlessly, how to make sure that the team continues to function. And I think that timing was we were so lucky with that timing that the adoption kind of skyrocketed. We had the system, we were not using it. For example, people were used to doing signature manually, manually. Then the office, the EA will scan it and then send it
PDF
it and send it to the counterparty. The counterparty will sign it and send it back. These systems were available. CLM did have that system, but people didn't experiment it, or people didn't want to use it for whatever reason. But with COVID and work from home, the adoption became a lot more easier. It just accelerated everything. And I think the other thing was I was also lucky to work in a company where the IT infrastructure was there to support work from home.
Yes.
I remember I think we were using Teams since 2018, I guess, 2017 or 18. But the adoption was not very high. We'd have landlines.
Yeah.
And all our offices are connected through that landline globally. So we would just call the landline rather than, using Teams to call.
Right.
But, with COVID and with work from home, we realized that it was a lot more easy to connect with your colleague through Teams. And you actually don't need a landline at all or a mobile at all to talk to somebody. So I think that the adoption of Teams also improved. And I think with Teams adoption and the CLM functioning, our life became a lot more easier for the legal team.
It's funny to think back to those days. I remember, you'd go in and you'd call your lawyer or whatever from one of the conference lines in the conference table. You'd get into the office super early to talk to somebody in Europe, and instead of just taking it from
Yeah.
home, it was a very different environment.
Yeah. I mean, I work for a tech company, and one of the things I found surprising, there was no landline here.
Yeah, right.
Nobody has a landline, and I was, where is my phone? And then I saw that nobody has a phone. So,
yeah. That's a good segue. I mean, you've transitioned from sort of large, more traditional enterprises, conglomerates, to, you spent time recently, about a year and a half, leading legal for a founder-led tech company, one of India's fastest growing tech companies. How did you navigate that sort of transition?
uh, look, I joined Ola with my eyes open. I knew that I had worked, my experience was primarily with a sorted, established Indian company versus now working for, or then working for Ola, which was a founder-led, very high energy, high passion environment. But I think it was still challenging, as you rightly said, Tyler. It was not easy. Working at a tech company is a different ball game than working in an established company. And I think you probably have heard it. Many people talk about it, but it's just amazing how much speed trumps over perfection. It's execution that matters. You have to execute, and there's just a lot of pressure around getting things done. And I think in a more traditional company, you have different interest groups in a company, where if a decision is taken, you can question, you can get heard, you can try changing the narrative around it, etc. But in a founder-led company, is very, very, as you rightly said, it's a founder-led. So once that vision is very clear that you have to do it, you have to execute it, I think you have to just find out ways to execute that and get it done with minimum amount of risk for the company.
What were the sort of skill sets that you felt like you drew on, or a mindset that you drew on to adapt to that environment and to motivate your team and to feel like you were performing at a really high level in an organization like that?
I think one is you have to be nimble. You have to be flexible in your thought process, and I think your appetite to take risk in a tech company, founder-led tech company, early growth company, is much higher. I'm talking about not for lawyer, but for the organization, and because the growth of the company always trumps over the other. What matters to the company is how fast it can execute and grow, just because the amount of competition it has. So I think that mindset was a major difference between the previous company and the tech company I worked with.
When you joined, the team was pretty small. You were able to scale the team to 40 plus folks. What were some of the early growing pains there, maybe, or how did you navigate that? How did you navigate growing the legal org?
I think, Tyler, I gave that example of somebody trying to do, an Indian lawyer, a member of my team sitting in Mumbai trying to do something in Brazil.
Yeah.
And it's not the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
One, your language capability is restricted, because people in Brazil talk Portuguese, and the law in for example in Brazil is very clear. If you can go and tell a court that, look, I've signed an English language contract.
Yeah.
I signed it, but I didn't understand when I signed, because I'm a native Portuguese speaker. You can actually get out of most of these contracts, particularly where external lawyers are not involved. And so I think those were the initial challenges which we had. We're having a very small team, managing a global business where 85% of his business came from outside of India. managing it out of a small team based out of Mumbai was a challenge. And having also no technology or less technology than it should also made it a little bit more challenging. But we outgrew this. I think the team grew. We implemented tech solutions, not just on the contracting part, but various other things which we did, which improved our efficiency significantly. And we also ended up, increasing the team.
As you take on these sorts of GC roles, I'm also curious how your mindset around leadership has shifted. Maybe, how do you feel like your responsibilities change, and the sort of mission, like the things that you have to let go of and the things that you have to pick up and really start to invest in? How has that changed as you've taken on GC roles both at UPL and at Ola?
Yeah, I think one change that happens is you start spending less and less time on the day-to-day operations or day-to-day routine matters. You end up spending more time on mentoring. You end up spending more time, talking to your stakeholders. You end up spending more time on, if there are issues on, larger deals, which requires audience or certain kind of audience, certain kind of resolutions. I think you end up spending more time there. You end up spending more time on compliance, making sure the company is, overall compliant with, the laws which impact it. So I think those are, the things which matter and which is important.
If you think about how you need to evolve in a GC role as a lawyer and a leader, I'd imagine you have to get some key hires around you right. What do you think those key hires are, and how do you get those key hires right to support you and empower you?
Look, I think that's one of the most important function or the role of a GC, to make sure that you end up hiring the right set of people. I would think, I won't go and name the roles, but it's important that you have the right level of experience in the team. And also I think what I saw or what I did when we moved from being, say, an under $1 billion company to, whatever, 10x of that, is to create more specialized roles. People were more generalist to start with initially, but we ended up having teams and people who were more specialized. So you'll have, for example, who do other things also, but specialize as, say, a compliance head. Somebody who understands sanctions very well. Somebody who understands FCPA very well. Somebody who understands licensing well, and give them the right training. I mean, of course, first is you hire the right people, but also give them the right training, give them the right expertise, so that they can grow and do well in that that role.
Maybe a last question, sort of on leadership. I think GCs play an important role in helping set company culture. And as you've been at these organizations that have scaled and grown, how did you sort of protect or maybe help company culture evolve in important ways as the company grew and the people changed?
I think, look, culture is always top down, is my experience. And I think I've worked in two organizations which are very different in culture. The role I had at Ola versus the role I had at UPL. And I think one of the things I did was that, look, let's create your own island. Let's create. I'm the head of the department for the legal function. I'm the one where the legal team spends time and energy. And my objective has always been is to create a very conducive, harmonious, and work culture where people love coming to office. And one of the things I did, and I think that's where technology also helped me, is where I kept told everybody in my team that, look, we all have to go up the value chain. let's get out of the mundane work we do every day. Let's let's make a process. Let's implement technology so that we don't have to do the routine, regular work. Let's go up the value chain. And I think ended up doing. People were happy.
Yeah.
People ended up doing more critical roles where they had to think rather than just do something which is very routinely required.
Yeah.
So that was one, and I think the other one was giving them more exposure to the broader company key stakeholders and making sure that look, this is what the culture of the company is. Just let's just understand that, and if you have and sorry, I think let me also take a step backward. I think one of the important way to align the culture is also to be careful with your hires.
Yes.
Like in my previous company, I wouldn't hire people who were overly aggressive.
Yeah.
Because that didn't fit the company culture, and hire people who were composed, happy to work with, people find pleasure,
yes,
or happy to in a team work.
Yeah.
So I think those were the things I would think I would keep my sight on.
Having that sort of good culture isn't always easy when you're managing things that are very high stakes. I want to ask you about a couple of those moments that you've been through. You shared with me that you've done a number of large litigations outside of India, including in the U.S. Maybe briefly just share a couple of those stories,
Sure.
And then I've got a couple more questions for you around them and lessons that other people could take away.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, very good question, Tyler. Thank you. So I think one is a more recent litigation which I did at Ola, a class action litigation in the UK, where the driver partners of Ola, so Ola operated in the UK until around a year back. And there was a class action litigation against the company where the driver partners of Ola alleged or claimed that they have an employer-employee relationship, and therefore they're entitled to minimum wages, holiday pay, etc. Of course, the business did not work on those parameters, and if I think it's all public knowledge, Uber ended up losing that case. Bolt ended up losing that case. We had a much smaller market share, but it was an easy litigation for the driver partners to win. And they went after us. There was it's a very, very US style class action. There was a plaintiff law firm which was kind of leading the charge, and with a revenue, whatever outcome driven engagement with the drivers. And I think that was very interesting. When I took over, the organization was spending a lot of money on legal fees.
Sure.
And I could help the company get a pretty well, a very good settlement out of that litigation just before we went for trial. And I think one of my advantage which I bring to the table is also to look at the big picture. So when I was looking at that litigation, the phase one of the trial was about to start. And everybody just looked at that phase one, that, okay, we are going to lose. Uber has lost. Bolt has lost. It's just a question of, you're wasting, 10 days of court work and, legal fees and this and that. And these are expensive litigations. I mean, the discovery was very, very contentious and very, I was just surprised how US style it has become in the UK. But I think one day I was just thinking, sitting and thinking that what is it we can do differently? And I started thinking about phase two of the litigation, which is not whether the employer-employee relationship exists, but whether we have given minimum wages or not. And actually went through one day, I was just sitting, I'm not very good with Excel.
Yeah.
Myself, I think that's one of the, but I called one of my team member, not a lawyer, but, who was very, very good with Excel.
Yeah.
So I had this whole data sheet of, the drivers, looking at their earnings and how much they rode, how much they were on the app, etc. in the UK, and then realize that, look, almost everybody has earned more than the minimum wages. not every, almost close to 100% were earning more than minimum wages. So I went
Interesting.
back and said, look, what is it are you fighting? I mean, even if we lose,
Right.
this is what it is. And nobody had thought about it. I think everybody just focused on phase one.
Yeah.
And that changed the whole narrative around settlement.
Uh-huh.
So they were coming forward for settlement before, but I think after this discussion, I think the whole narrative around on settlement changed, and they became a lot more amenable to much smaller number on settling the litigation, and we helped settle. So,
I mean, that's a pretty interesting case to also bring to your executive team or to the founder of the business or the board about why you should settle. Talk to us a little bit about the role of the GC in counseling the exec team on trade-offs around something like this, and how you make the case, basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
Look, I think I alluded to the fact that one of the things one person I really admire in my career is Charlie Munger. And he, as a lawyer, I think somewhere I remember he's saying that, look, if you have to communicate as a lawyer on a legal issue, don't just tell them what the non-compliance would cost them, cost the business, but actually give them a live example, and more often than not, give an aggravated or exaggerated perspective of what could happen, what worse could happen. And I think that I've played that over a period of time several times, even in this existing matter. I think this was a fairly easy convincing, because the sheer amount of money we were spending on fighting this litigation, the upcoming trial in London, and the need to fly people from India to be key witnesses, and the cost saving, the numbers. So the negotiation happened over a period of time, over a couple of weeks, and the more I could tell my own executive team and founder that, look, it does not make sense to fight, because even if you fight, your legal cost itself on phase one is going to be probably higher than the settlement amount. And also the bad press is going to get you, once you lose the case.
Sure.
And I think the other important point was, in a class action, the class is always open. The class doesn't close. And the more people hear about an outcome which kind of favors, in this case, the tribal partner, the more it would come together, and they would come and claim, and the pot will increase. So it would just it was a very easy advice and easy convincing, and I'm thankful to the founder and the executive team to have understood that and agreed to the settlement.
One other area that you've been working on that I think is interesting, we're not going to break news on this, but that's in the news, is two-wheeler taxis. I mean, I've experienced Bangalore traffic both this time and the previous 3 times that I've been here. Two-wheeler taxis in Bangalore have faced regulatory pushback. What's going on with something like this? It actually doesn't seem all that dissimilar from the early debates around Uber and Lyft in the United States, and sort of like taxi companies versus rideshare. Tell us a little bit more about what's happening.
Sure. So, look, two-wheelers were operating as taxis in Bangalore, in Karnataka, until 15th of June, and it was operating under a court order. And I don't want to get into too much of detail on the law, but in India, all the aggregators, the parent legislation, which is the federal legislation, is an act called Motor Vehicle Act.
Okay.
So the Motor Vehicle Act applies to all of India. It actually allows two-wheeler taxis to operate. The law says that it can operate subject to regulation by the state. Now, the settled position is that the state can put conditions on the operations of two-wheelers, but cannot stop it. They don't have because the legislation has already allowed.
It's a preemption question, basically.
So, but the state has its own reason for not allowing. and particularly in Bangalore. And I mean, there are a few reasons, but I think one important reason for them not allowing is it's a democracy. You have very, very strong interest groups, and the three-wheeler, the unions here are very strong in Bangalore, and there, so the family, the three-wheeler family is close to 5 to 6 lakh. There are 1,50,000, 150,000, sorry, auto permits in Bangalore, and so, and if you add that in the family into 4, that's the amount of vote bank you have.
Right.
And you displease this group of people by allowing two-wheelers because that puts pressure on the three-wheeler for bad or good or bad reason.
Sure.
And so the three-wheeler unions never want the two-wheeler taxis to comply, to apply in Bangalore. So there's actually no ban except for a statement made by the state in the High Court saying that they will not allow two-wheelers to run and operate as taxis in Bangalore.
Interesting.
They haven't come up with a paper. They have come up with a law which prohibits it because they cannot. But you know, because of this very interesting incentive system, it's not getting allowed.
I had the president and first GC of Lyft on the podcast, and we talked a little bit about, I think, a similar situation in some ways in California and in New York. And what's the role of the GC in your mind in counseling an executive team around a scenario like this or a situation like this? What are the different factors that you want them to sort of like understand?
I think I would tell them both the legal principle on where we stand and where the aggregators stand. It's not just in, for example, in my case, not just the Ola case.
Right.
It is also an Uber issue. It's also a Rapido issue. It's also an issue of most of the aggregators, or primarily 3. So make them understand the legal issue, make them understand the practical reasons why it's not getting allowed, and the different pressure points on what works, what not. Make them understand about the collaboration. There is some sort of a soft collaboration between different aggregators because the objective is the same.
Sure.
That it should be allowed, and make them understand that, and also make them understand the limitations of the Indian court system, because sometimes they think that, look, if the law is so clear, then why should it not be allowed?
Right.
And we have been all banging our heads on it that, look, we were actually trying very hard to convince the court to give us interim protection and allow us to operate. But the court, for one reason or the other, doesn't want to give any interim orders. So I think make them understand that as well. And I think those are the things which I would do.
As we start to wrap up, I'm asking all of my guests, and I think you will have some great ideas around this, given your interest in legal tech, propensity for adopting legal tech. I'm asking all my guests about some recent findings in a report that we put out, our 2025 Contracting Efficiency Benchmarking Report. One thing, we surveyed legal teams. We found that while a lot of folks are aiming for automation, about 15% of teams out there are still just feeling like they're very reactive. They're not able to be proactive around contracting. And they feel like technology hasn't manifested itself or hasn't enabled the change that they wish to see. What do you think the blocker for these teams might be around getting to where they want to be with technology, right? If it's not the tech itself, what could they do to leverage technology better?
I think the report talks about CLM, if I'm not.
It does, yes.
And I think in my experience, there are 3 or 4 things which could be a blocker. One is just the law of inertia.
Yeah.
You're just used to doing something in a manner, and you don't want to make that change.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody needs to push that. Look, change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. The second is also, and I think it kind of interlinks with inertia, is accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, I've experienced that when I was implementing it in my previous organization. There were sections of businesses where they were not happy implementing a CLM, and the
Mm-hmm.
reason was that people are used to doing things in a certain way.
Yes.
I think CLM makes everything more accountable. If you approve, for example, an exclusivity for a product,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mapped it will be mapped in CLM, and it goes to a particular stakeholder, and that person has approved it
Mm-hmm.
before legal signs off on it. Some people will not like it because they have never been held accountable in so transparent a manner
Mm-hmm.
as they would be once CLM is implemented. So I think this second. Uh, Third, I think, is also budget, and I'm talking more maybe from the
Yeah.
Indian context. Uh, you know, Getting the right management support,
Mm-hmm.
being able to articulate the need for say a tech solution to the management, to the CEO or the
Mm-hmm.
C-suite, and convincing them why that budget is important and actually essential, and how it helps saving cost
Mm-hmm.
is it would be important. I mean, I was just lucky, I think, to work with people who understood it
Yes.
well. I think I'll give you a very simple example, Tyler, where we could, very simple things. We would struggle, for example, getting executed contracts back with legal department. We had one person
Mm-hmm.
who would just chase everybody to get that final signed contract
Mm-hmm.
in the system, and it was just so difficult because you know it's all on email. It's somebody has scanned and signed, scanned, sent. uh, I was just sitting with the tech team and said, look, how do we solve it?
Mm-hmm.
Despite putting so much of effort, if we are unable to do it,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a better way to do it. And we just integrated one of the digital signature platforms into the CLM,
Mm-hmm.
and instruction went out that now every signature will be through the system, and that problem vanished overnight. And I
Mm-hmm.
think those are the communications you have to go and tell uh, your C-suite people and the executive board that, look, this is the reason we need it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise we are exposed and there's risk.
One more question for you around efficiency. We found across the survey group that 2/3, basically 66% of teams, are still taking longer than a week to close out their standard contracts, right? Do you feel like this is a process problem in a lot of places, a tech problem? Are there ideas you have for driving efficiency in contracting process?
I think it's a simple. If you take a week to sign and execute your standard contract, I think there is some gap in the system. People probably send emails and forget.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, sometimes the signatories are not available.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that you're having prolonged negotiations on your standard templates. I think
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, people would kind of with little negotiation be able to close
Mm-hmm.
the contract. So I think with the tech intervention, one should be able to resolve this and reduce the seven days dramatically to maybe a couple of days
Mm-hmm.
at best.
I've got some closing questions that I've been asking all of my guests for a while. First one for you. Is there a piece of advice that you feel like was really impactful or changed the course of your career, or a mentor that gave you that advice that was really important to you?
I think I I think the most important advice I read actually from one of the very well-known lawyers uh, uh, said once that spend more time thinking about a matter than reading it, and I think that did make some difference in my output.
Mm-hmm.
I think all lawyers, including myself, whenever you get a problem, you just start reading.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, you read whatever you could and, try finding a solution to that problem. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't spend enough time thinking about that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, it's not easy. It sounds very easy. It's not easy. And I think
Yeah.
some of it comes with experience. But your ability to sit down and think about solving a problem, even a legal problem, has tremendous benefit. And I've benefited tremendously with, that's one advice which I read from a very senior jurist in India.
That's great. Do you have I guess, looking back on your last year and a half at Ola, since now you're going to be taking some time off, which will be well deserved, and the answer to this question may change. Do you have a favorite part of your day to day? Did you have a favorite part of your day to day at Ola?
I think my favorite part would be, I think my team.
Yeah.
I was just very proud of my team. It's a very high, a very efficient, high productivity team.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just be a pleasure, talking to them, guiding them at times, solving problems, going out for coffees
Yeah.
and lunches together. We had this fantastic, culture where we would all get our food together,
Mm-hmm.
sit on one table, and share our lunch boxes,
Mm-hmm.
and and have lunch. And I think I miss those days where
Mm-hmm.
you sit with the team and have your lunch and and talk about problems, and sometimes help
Mm-hmm.
solve a lot of these problems while having those lunches.
Yeah. Solutions can come in less formal settings, on a
Absolutely.
walk or a run or at lunch
Absolutely.
or I think this is kind of a fun question or a funny question. Do you have a professional pet peeve?
Oh, okay. I think there are many. I think people coming and telling, "Oh, I need it yesterday," and they won't say this to me so many times, but the
Yeah.
legal team members would often hear this, that look, this is very super important. This needs
Mm-hmm.
to be done tonight, and I kind of know that, having spent time in, that look, this is not as urgent. So I
Right.
think that's that's one of the things which always irritate me, that look,
Mm-hmm.
hang on, give us some time to look at
Mm-hmm.
it rather than rushing.
Do you have a book that you would recommend to our listeners? And I mean, this could be a professional book, or it could just be something that you've read recently or want to read that you think is interesting.
Look, I've been I have been reading. I've always read a lot, and
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily mean legal books.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I've been a biography nut.
Yeah.
I would have read almost all the biographies which I could get my hands on, and particularly the Americans,
Uh-huh.
because they end up reading. And one of my favorite author is Walter Isaacson.
Sure. Yeah.
He has written some of these fabulous books on, from Elon Musk to
Mm-hmm.
Steve
Steve Jobs.
Jobs
Yeah.
and Leonardo
Da
da
Vinci.
Vinci.
Yeah.
Presently, I'm reading a very interesting book called Singularity is Nearer.
Hmm.
And it's a book on Gen AI. And it talks about how AI is going to rule the world and how transformational it is. But on the positive side, I think
Mm-hmm.
you hear about the more doomsday scenario for employment, etc.,
Yeah.
with the progress of Gen AI. But he kind of argues that, look, like in the early 20th century, or the mid 20th century, 1950s, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
when ATMs came, and the tellers were out of job for some time,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody predicted that, look, it's going to be very difficult for people to get jobs. But the jobs transformed, the nature of jobs changed, but actually
Yes.
more opportunities came. So he's one of the leading guy. This book, I think, is Ray Kurzweil is
Okay.
the author, and he predicts that by 2047, the Neuralink, if you know, if you hear
Yes.
about Elon Musk, he says your Gen AI is going to merge with human mind, and your human mind will become exponentially more powerful. Maybe 1,000 times, maybe 1,000,000 times. There's just no limit. So it's just, I've been reading about it, just fascinated by, and because it's on the positive side and not on the negative side, it's just very interesting. And I would think it'll be very interesting for anybody to read that book.
I'll have to pick that one up. My last question for you, Rohit, the question I close all my episodes with, it's if you could look back on your days as a young lawyer, maybe at the firm, just getting started, one thing that you know now that you wish that you'd known back then?
I think that would be, I didn't know how important maths is to a corporate lawyer. And with maths, I mean, accounts and how balance sheets work and how, accounting entries work. And I wish I had known when I was in college. I'm better than most lawyers on numbers. But when I sit in a room where, there are chartered accountants and CPAs and, finance guys, they always outsmart, lawyers. And I wish I knew, maths and algebra and, accounting as much, as good as them. And, that I think that would have made me a far better lawyer than what I am today.
That's a good piece of advice. Understand the business's P&L and how to read a balance sheet.
Absolutely.
Rohit, this has been a really fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Abstract. And we hope to see you next time.